Jean-Claude Van Damme has finally spoken out about Steven Seagal, and what he says doesn't just surprise, it changes everything. For years, fans whispered about their rumored rivalry, speculated about the clash of these martial arts legends, and dreamed of an on-screen reunion that never
finally
came.
breaks his silence.
But what they've
Steven
heard now
Seagal.
is far
And
more
what he says
explosive
isn't
than
just
anyone
shocking.
could have imagined.
It's worse than
It all
anyone
started
imagined.
innocently enough, or at least it seemed that way. A cryptic Instagram post from Van Damme, one that hinted at peace between the two, felt like a sigh of relief. But little did anyone know,
For years,
it was the
fans
calm before
begged
a
for
storm
answers,
of revelations.
speculated about their
After
rivalry,
decades of silence,
and even
Van
hoped for a
Damme has
legendary
finally come
on-screen
forward,
reunion.
offering a brutal truth
Instead,
that completely
they
flips
got
the
something
narrative
far
on its
more
head
explosive.
about Seagal. Their feud, and the myth that Hollywood has fed the world for years, the rivalry, as it turns
It all
out,
started with a
wasn't
cryptic
just part of the
Instagram
script,
post that
it
looked
was
like
personal.
peace.
Back in the early
But it was the calm
1990s,
before the
if you
storm.
walked into a video rental
Now,
store,
after
two
decades
names
of
stood out
tension,
like giants on the
Van
shelves:
Damme has stepped
Jean-Claude Van
forward with
Damme
brutal
and
honesty.
Steven Seagal.
And what he reveals
They were more than
changes
just
everything.
action stars, they were the face of martial arts on film, heroes. To a generation that thrived on tough guy, bravado, but behind the adrenaline-pumping fight scenes and iconic slow-motion
Seagal,
explosions,
their feud,
there was a
and the
simmering
truth
feud
behind
that no
Hollywood's
one
biggest
outside
martial
Hollywood
arts
knew.
myth.
At first, it didn't look like much. No public beef, no insults in interviews, no tabloids fanning the flames. But if you listened closely to the whispers, you'd catch the subtle jabs. Seagal, without
They leapt
naming
off the
names,
shelves. They
would
were
dismiss
titans of
Van Damme,
testosterone,
calling him a dancer
martial arts
because of his
legends in the eyes
ballet
of their
training.
fans,
He'd
and
take
symbols
shots
of
at
what it
Van
meant to
Damme's
be a
combat
real action
skills,
hero.
undermining his martial
One
arts
came with
experience
spinning kicks
without
and
ever
tournament
confronting
medals.
him directly.
The other brought sharp
It was all
Aikido
very
wrist
sly,
locks and a stare
almost
colder than
passive-aggressive.
steel.
But those
what
in the
fans
know
didn't know
understood.
back then was that behind
Seagal
the high-octane
didn't
fight scenes
respect
and
Van
slow-motion
Damme.
explosions,
Not as an
a
actor,
real-life
not as a
feud was
fighter.
simmering.
For his part, Van Damme stayed quiet. He was busy building a career, one blockbuster after another: Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Universal Soldier, Time Cop. His reputation wasn't just made in front of the
But
camera.
if you listened
He had
closely to the
real-world
interviews
tournament
and the
experience.
backstage chatter,
His spinning kicks
you'd
weren't
notice something
just
odd.
for show, they
Steven
were weapons.
Seagal had a habit
But
of
behind the
casually
scenes,
dismissing
the
other
tension was
martial
palpable.
artists, especially Van
Insiders
Damme.
noticed that the two
In press
stars never
junkets
shared
and
events.
behind-the-scenes
Producers had to
conversations,
pick
he
one or
referred-
the other for fear of igniting drama. It wasn't public, but it wasn't peace either. The rivalry wasn't just about who could throw the fastest punch, it was a clash of martial arts philosophies. Van Damme represented the flash and intensity of tournament kickboxing, while Seagal stood for the fluid,
to discredit
almost
his
spiritual
combat
side of
skills without
Aikido.
ever naming him
Their
outright.
on-screen personas
It was
reflected
subtle,
this.
even sly.
Van Damme was the
But those in the
emotional,
industry caught the
open-hearted
tone.
hero, wearing his
Seagal
feelings
didn't
on his
respect
sleeve.
Van Damme. Not as
Seagal
an
was the
actor,
stoic,
not as
distant
a
figure,
martial artist.
the man who seemed like he had
Van
a
Damme,
secret
at
hidden
least
just
publicly,
beneath the
said
surface.
nothing.
There. Films mirrored this conflict, Van Damme's with raw emotion and vulnerability, Seagal's with darkness and mystery. As the years wore on, their rivalry became a Cold War in Hollywood, war of pride. Because in the world of martial arts, respect isn't given,
Distance,
it's earned.
never
And
confronted
eventually,
each other directly.
one of them would demand it.
Until
in
one
the
night,
only way he
that
knew
changed.
how, entered the
But that's
Stallone
for
party.
later.
It was the late
For
90s.
now, it's important
the
to
golden
understand
era
that
of
this
action
wasn't
heroes
just a
was
personal
winding
rivalry.
down. But a party at Sylvester Stallone's mansion had the potential to bring the fire back. Legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis were there, but it was the presence of Van Damme and Seagal that made things interesting. For years, these two had never shared a film, rarely shared a conversation, and never shared respect. At first, the party was what you'd expect: drinks, laughter, stories. But as the night wore on, Seagal,
This was
as he
a
often
clash
did,
of philosophies.
started talking not about
Van
his own
Damme represented
accomplishments,
the flashy,
but about others.
high-energy,
According
fight-tested
to
style
Stallone,
of tournament
Seagal's
kickboxing
comments
and
drifted
traditional
into
martial
familiar
arts.
territory, mocking Van
Seagal
Damme's
stood for the
background,
grounded,
calling him
mysterious aura
overrated,
of Aikido,
questioning his authenticity.
fluid, elusive,
Maybe Seagal
almost
didn't expect
spiritual.
Van Damme to hear it,
Their
or maybe he
on-screen
didn't care.
personas
But
mirrored
Van
the way
Damme
they
heard it
moved
hand
through
this time.
Hollywood.
He wasn't staying
Van
silent.
Damme was charming,
What happened
emotional,
next is part
and
of
often
Hollywood
wore
lore.
his heart on his
Van
sleeve.
Damme didn't throw a punch.
Seagal was
he didn't
brooding,
storm out.
distant,
Instead,
and
he
always
did something
seemed to
far
be
more
hiding
intense.
something just
He
beneath
issued
the
a
surface.
challenge. Step
And yet,
outside
despite
and
the
settle
tension,
it like
they
real
remained
martial
linked.
artists, he said.
Every time Van Damme had a
Seagal,
new hit,
trying to laugh it off,
Seagal would fire
brushed him
back
off,
with a roll of
but
his
Van
own.
Damme didn't flinch. He pressed the challenge again. Seagal declined and left the party. Most would have let it go at that, but not Van Damme. Later that night, he tracked Seagal to a nearby nightclub. Once again, in front of stunned onlookers, Van Damme challenged him to a fight. Seagal refused. What happened next became a myth. Some said it was staged. Others thought it nearly turned violent.
Was a
Stallone
Cold War
himself,
that had lasted
years later,
years. A
confirmed
war
the
of
story,
silence,
calling it
a
one
war
of the
of
most
glances,
intense
and most of
confrontations
all,
he'd
a
ever
war of
witnessed.
pride.
According to him,
Because behind all
Van
the
Damme was
interviews,
too
the
strong,
roundhouse
and
kicks
Seagal
the
wanted
stoic
no part of
monologues,
it.
these
Van
weren't
Damme
just
never
movie
bragged
stars.
about it. He didn't
They were martial artists.
turn it into a press tour
and in their
or
world,
write it into a
respect
movie.
isn't given.
He let the
It's
silence
earned.
speak for itself.
And soon,
and in that
one of them would
silence,
demand
the
it
Cold
the only
War
way
between
he
them
knew how.
escalated. There was no going back after that night. The world thought the rivalry had faded by the early 2000s. But then, in a 2023 interview with The Telegraph, Van Damme casually dropped a bombshell. He revealed that he had once been offered $20 million to fight Steven Seagal in a real martial arts showdown, not on a movie set, but in the ring at the Mirage Casino in Las Vegas. The idea was for them to face off black belts against black belts. No stunt doubles, just pure skill, Van Damme said. Yes, Seagal, however, never showed.
For years, the feud stayed
$20 million,
quiet,
a
an
packed
undercurrent
arena.
beneath the surface
The fight of the
Hollywood's
decade, and
high-octane
Seagal
action
walked
scene.
away. The media
But then came
went
the
wild.
party,
YouTube
a gathering
channels
that
broke
was
it
supposed
down.
to be casual,
Fans
even
couldn't believe
celebratory.
it. Some were
The kind
stunned
of
that such an
event where
offer
legends
had
let
even been
loose
made.
and everyone leaves
Others
with a
couldn't
handshake
fathom
or a
why
story.
Seagal turned it down.
Hosted
Was
by
it
none
fear? Pride? Or was it something deeper? Something about the carefully cultivated mystique Seagal had built over the years. Van Damme didn't gloat when he told the story. In fact, there was a strange restraint to his words, as if he was tired of keeping a secret no one believed. He didn't need to exaggerate. The truth spoke for itself. And now, after all these years, the truth is out. The rivalry was real. And while the world wondered why Seagal never stepped into the ring,
this party would
Van
go
Damme's
down as
quiet
the night
admission tells us
nearly
everything
blew
we
up.
need to know.
Literally.
The silence
It
surrounding
was the
Steven
golden era
Seagal
of
spoke
muscle-bound,
volumes.
one-liner dropping heroes
But even
was
after Van
beginning to
Damme's
dim.
revelation, there
But
was
at
no
Stallone's
closure.
mansion, the
Seagal
spirits
didn't
were
respond.
high and the guest
No
list
rematch
was
was
stacked.
proposed.
More.
No late career
And among
showdown
them,
ever emerged.
two men who had never shared a
The
film,
opportunity slipped
barely
away,
shared a
like
sentence,
so many
and
legendary
definitely
moments in
didn't share
Hollywood,
respect.
quietly fading into the
Jean-Claude
realm
Van
of
Damme
what-ifs
and Steven Seagal.
speculation. But for fans, that missed moment became more than just a lost payday. It became the symbol of everything that had defined the Van Damme-Seagal saga. A rivalry built on pride, fueled by silence, and ultimately defined by a fight that never happened. And just when the world thought the feud might finally be cooling down, Van Damme made a move no one saw coming. One that would change everything. It was subtle, no press release, no hype, no dramatic buildup. Just a single Instagram post that immediately had fans
Not about
doing
his own
double
films
takes.
or achievements,
There,
but about others.
sitting at a table, clinking
According to
glasses
Stallone
and smiling
himself,
together,
Seagal's
were
comments
Jean-Claude Van
drifted into
Damme
familiar
and
territory,
Steven Seagal.
mocking
Yes,
Van Damme's
Steven
background,
Seagal.
calling him
The
overrated,
caption read,
questioning
"Thank you,
his
Steven,
authenticity
and your family
as a martial
for the
artist.
fantastic dinner.
Maybe he
Wishing
didn't
you a
expect
happy
Van
birthday."
Damme to hear it.
Big announcement coming
Maybe
soon.
he didn't care.
The internet
But Van Damme
exploded
heard.
after
And this
decades
time,
of
he
icy
wasn't
silence,
interested in staying
cryptic
silent.
jabs, and near
What happened
confrontations.
next has become
Seeing
Hollywood
these two
legend.
sitting together, no awkwardness, no tension, just what seemed like a friendly toast left fans in a frenzy. Was this the sign of a long-awaited reconciliation? A truce? Or was it something bigger? Comments flooded in with theories. Some were euphoric, believing the legends had finally united. Others were confused. Wait, wasn't Van Damme the one who challenged Seagal to a fight outside Stallone's house? There were even die-hard fans who scrutinized the video, frame by frame, analyzing every small gesture. Was Van Damme genuinely smiling? Did Seagal seem tense? Was that toast real, or just for the camera? Media outlets quickly picked up on the moment. Peace, at last, one headline blared. Van Damme and Seagal reunite after decades. Read another dot in a world where celebrity feuds often end in public
Van
apologies
Damme
or
confronted
joint
Seagal
projects.
directly, face
This
to
moment
face.
seemed like the
No
perfect
cameras,
Hollywood ending
no stunt
one
doubles.
expected.
He
But
didn't
there was
throw a
something
punch.
off,
Instead,
something just
he
beneath
issued
the
a
surface.
challenge.
The video
Step
was brief,
outside
carefully
and settle it
cropped,
like real
no
martial
audio,
artists.
no behind the scenes.
According to
Shots
Stallone,
just a slow pan of the
Seagal
table.
brushed him off and
Van
tried to
Damme
laugh
nodding.
it away.
Seagal looking
Van Damme
stone-faced
didn't
in the
flinch.
background.
He pressed again,
That line in the
telling
caption,
him to back up his words.
big announcement coming
Seagal
soon.
declined.
That's what
He
stayed
left the
with
party
people.
altogether.
What kind of announcement? A
this could have
movie?
ended
A
there.
documentary? A
A
martial
tense
arts
moment,
exhibition?
sure, but
Was it
nothing
all
explosive.
just clever marketing?
Stallone,
or was
however,
something actually
confirmed it
brewing
years
behind the
later,
scenes?
calling it one of the
Van
most
Damme
intense
never followed up, and
confrontations he'd ever
Seagal,
witnessed
as
at a
always,
party.
said nothing.
His words were blunt.
Deepened the mystery.
Van Damme was
The
too
timing
strong.
felt strange
Seagal
too.
wanted no part
This
of it.
wasn't just a random
For
dinner.
Van Damme, this
it was
wasn't
Seagal's
about
birthday.
showmanship. It was
rare
about honor.
personal moment
If
that
someone
suddenly
questioned your
became a
discipline,
very
your
public
training,
event.
your legitimacy,
Why now?
you defended
Why
it.
post this
Not
after
with
years
trash
of
talk,
avoiding each
but
other,
with proof.
throwing subtle
In
digs,
his world,
and never
martial
really
arts wasn't
acknowledging
just
the rivalry?
choreography.
Some
It was a
fans
way of
believed
life,
it was genuine.
a code.
Others
And
weren't
Seagal
so
had
sure. If Van Damme had truly buried the hatchet, why hadn't he said more? Why hadn't Seagal said anything at all? Why not show them laughing, shaking hands, embracing like Stallone and Schwarzenegger had done in the past? Why the restraint? Why the ambiguity? Theories began to spread fast. Maybe it was all just hype for a film they'd been quietly working on. Maybe they were cashing in on the feud that had followed them their entire careers. Or maybe, just maybe, there was something more to
But
the
Seagal's
story.
refusal didn't
That
hurt him
hadn't
in
come out
Hollywood.
yet a deeper,
Not immediately.
darker truth.
He kept making
Because
films,
while most people
kept
took the
cultivating
post
his
at face
mysterious
value,
persona.
longtime fans of
Yet
both
among
men
martial
noticed
arts
something
purists
different in
and
Van
behind the
Damme's
scenes,
expression.
the story
A
stuck.
flicker in his eyes, not
Not just that
hostility,
Seagal walked
not
away,
joy something.
but that he
Else
did so
entirely,
twice.
he
in the
hadn't
face
said
of
much,
someone who
but
actually
there was
wanted
something
to
about
fight.
the timing, the silence, and the calculated wording that made it clear. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a setup for something else, something bigger. And then, in an interview, Jean-Claude Van Damme broke his silence once again. This time it wasn't dramatic. No viral video, no fireworks, just a quiet, composed
That
interview.
night didn't settle the
He
score,
didn't hold back.
but it made one
After
thing
years
clear.
of rumors,
This feud
missed
wasn't
fights,
media hype.
and carefully
It was
controlled
personal.
images,
And
he
Van
dropped
Damme,
the one
whether
sentence
people
that
knew it or
changed
not,
everything.
was just getting
He is a
started.
fraud. There it was, no hesitation, no backpedaling, just pure honesty, delivered in a tone that wasn't angry,
The
but
party
simply
incident had turned
tired
into
of
a
the myth,
cautionary tale in
tired of
Hollywood
the silence,
circles.
and
One of
tired of a
those
man
whispered
he
stories
believed
everyone
had been
swore they
hiding
heard from
behind
someone
smoke and
who was
mirrors
there.
for decades.
Yet neither
For Van
man
Damme,
had ever gone
this
on the
wasn't
record
about
to
ego.
clear the air
It was
or
about
settle
setting the
score.
record straight.
Not in
He
the
talked
ring,
about
not on
Seagal's
screen,
self-proclaimed
not even in
exploits
words.
training CIA agents,
And then,
fighting real-life bad guys. But he pointed out the undeniable truth. Seagal had never fought in a real tournament. Not one. Not like Van Damme, who had put his body on the line in the ring. Van Damme didn't stop there. He brought up the $20 million fight offer again, this time with more context. He explained how both he and Seagal had been offered a chance to fight in Las Vegas, a real fight in front of a live crowd. Van Damme said yes. Seagal didn't show up. Then Van Damme circled back to the
they were
Instagram
having an idea
post,
to have a
the
fight
one that
between
had
me and
fans
Steven
buzzing
at
with
the
hope.
Mirage.
It wasn't a
20
peace
million
offering,
each.
he explained.
He didn't
It wasn't
take
a
the fight.
reunion. It was observation.
The statement
He
landed
had
like a
hoped
punch
that
to the gut.
maybe Seagal
Quiet,
had changed,
direct,
that the
but
bravado, the
impossible
tall
to
tales,
ignore.
the posturing had been left
This
behind.
wasn't just a rumor,
But
or
what
a
he
fantasy
saw
cooked
only
up by
confirmed what he had
fans.
suspected all
It was
along.
a serious proposal by
The
none other
foundation
than
beneath
Peter
Seagal's
Guber,
persona,
a heavyweight
hollowed
producer in the industry.
The big announcement? It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a collaboration. It was the truth. The truth that had been lurking all these years, and for the first time, Van Damme wasn't holding back. The silence was broken. The feud was no longer just about rumors or second-hand accounts. It was personal, and it was public now, after all. These years of silence, challenges, and missed opportunities. Van Damme had finally spoken the words many had only whispered. He is a fraud, and there was no turning back.
And he walked
The
away.
fallout was swift.
Of course,
Fans,
questions
critics,
followed.
martial artists,
didn't
and
Seagal
former
accept?
collaborators weighed in.
Was it fear?
Some were
Was it
shocked,
ego?
some vindicated,
Or was it something more
but no one
calculated?
remained neutral.
An unwillingness to
Seagal's
risk the
defenders
image he had
scrambled
built
to
so
downplay
carefully
the
over
comments,
the years.
claiming Van Damme was bitter
Seagal,
or that it
after
was all for
had
publicity.
always leaned more on
But
mystique
those
than on
explanations
proving
didn't
himself
stick.
in a ring.
Van Damme's
While Van
words
Damme
didn't
had
sound
actual
like a man
competitive
seeking
fighting
headlines.
experience.
They sounded
Seagal's
like a
career
man
had
who had
been rooted
finally
in
had enough.
demonstrations,
And
not
as clips
tournaments.
from Seagal's old interviews
Aikido
where reposted
background,
those
while
wild
real,
stories
was
about
never
fighting,
battle-tested in
off
the same
gangsters,
way.
breaking arms,
There was also the
training
issue
elite
of pride.
operatives, the
If
contrast
Seagal
became
believed himself
undeniable.
above that kind of
Van Damme's
spectacle,
career wasn't
maybe
based
he
on
saw
image
the
or
offer
myth.
as beneath
It
him.
was based on
Or
real
maybe
competition,
he knew that a real
on
fight would
documented
settle more
discipline,
than just
on actual tournaments. Seagal's reputation, on the other hand, had been carefully crafted over the years, with little real substance behind it. Legacy isn't just built on what you portray. It's built on what you prove. And that's where the Van Damme-Seagal story ultimately lands. Not in a movie, not in a cage match, but in the undeniable contrast between two men who lived very different truths. One built his career on vulnerability, discipline, and actual combat. The other built his on mystery, authority, and myth. When the silence finally broke, it wasn't fists or kicks that left the deepest impact. It was honesty. Because
It all started
sometimes
with a cryptic
the truth hits
Instagram
harder than
post that
any
looked
punch.
like